You're listening to The Rich Life Revolution with me, Michelle Cooper. My mission is to empower you to step into your next level of wealthy. You'll hear all the deets, a little bit of inspiration, and real life takeaways so that you can create your own rich life revolution. Let's dig in. Welcome to the Rich Life Revolution. I am your host, Michelle, and today we're talking about making your mark on the world. As I'm sure you can imagine or agree, the idea of changing jobs can feel stressful. How about when the move you're considering is from employee to self-employed? Well, that can be even more nerve-wracking. Many people will think that a 9-to-5 job is secure. However, in today's world, that's not so much guaranteed. My guest today completed her gradual, calculated leap from worker to entrepreneur very recently. And today, Candice Dorsey is brimming with insights and tips, both about how to make this transition feel possible and about her current business focus, which is all about helping people launch their podcasts. In our conversation today, we're going to cover these topics in tons of inspiring detail. So let's take a listen. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to talk to you, Candice. Oh my God, and share you with the world. We just had the most awesome pre-recording conversation, and I can't wait to dive in. So welcome to the Rich Life Revolution.
Yay. Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I warned you, come on, Candice, brag about yourself.
Oh my goodness, she's going to make me do it. Okay, so my name is Candice. I'm from California, and I've been in this online space for so long. I want to say when I first started off writing my book in 2010, then I've self-published it, learned how to do all that by myself in 2011. It's my first novel.
Wow.
Yes, I did it. I did. I don't talk about it a lot because I'm like, okay, that was a period in my life where I was just like, I was on it. I was constantly like writing and everything, but it definitely died down. I want to do it again. I so want to do it again. It's so much fun. But I did that, and that's kind of like how I got into the online space, like just learning the whole blogging. I used to do book blog tours for authors and everything on my blog, and that's like a virtual tour, book tour rather than just going out. So I did that. I created a magazine. I've been a virtual assistant. And I did all of this while I was working a 9 to 5 for 18 years. So yeah, it's just been in my, I just got hit by the bug, and I've always wanted to have my own business. And the fun fact about me is I wanted to be like Selena, the singer. Loved her story, loved watching her movie constantly over and over again. I'm like, I want to be a singer. I want to have my own clothing line. So I kind of like was getting into that. Like I would call record labels, send them emails and everything when I was a teenager. Like, hey, I want to be an intern. I want to work with you guys. No one responded back to me, but that's just
Right?
that's just how I was. And I've always been like that. I think the one thing that was definitely a blessing, but it could be a curse. My mom just buying me a computer because I was in front of it all the time. So that's just been me.
Oh my God. It sounds like you had a side hustle for so long, hey? But it was like a side hustle that was like you were passionate about it, right?
Yes. Yes. I've always come up with some things.
Well, I might hit you up about advice on writing a novel and self-publishing it because, I feel like I've got a novel inside of me. Like I've written books, like nonfiction and stuff like that, but I feel like there's a novel in there. I don't even know where to start with writing a novel. Like I know the outline of, the hero's journey and stuff, but I feel really intimidated by that. So to meet somebody who's done that, I think is awesome. Oh my God.
Yeah. I always tell new authors, people that just want to, get started writing novels, is let the character talk to you and forget about the outline and everything. Start out writing and then at least do like at least 3 chapters in when I was writing my book. That's when I started developing the outline.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good piece of information there. Good advice. So, what are you up to nowadays?
So nowadays, I actually teach podcasting. So I'm a podcast manager. I have my own podcast called the Candice Dorsey podcast, and I've had so many people ask me like how did I get started and everything. I've been doing it since 2019, and it's been so fun. Funny enough, I actually started doing podcasting because I want to have authors rather than doing the whole blog and everything. I want to have authors come on my podcast, and it just like morphed into this thing and I just can't get it out of my system. So I continue to keep refining my process, keep doing it over and over again. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm working towards launching at least one challenge a month on learn how to launch a podcast, do your first recording. So that's what I'm actually getting ready to gear up to do another challenge next week.
Oh, so good. So good. There's a lot that goes into launching a podcast that I didn't even know, right? Like one day I came up with this idea of the Rich Life Revolution podcast, and then I was like, oh, hang on. This is a lot. There's a lot more to this than me just buying a mic and like hitting record kind of thing. So I totally appreciate that. And I feel like the more you put into learning about how to create your podcast, like intentionally, the better your podcast will be. So I think the work you're doing in the world is so important. And so thank you for that, because podcasting is like, I guess it's old, but it's new, or I don't know how long it's been around. But to me, it is so great that even though I say, there's more to it than you think, it is relatively easy to get your podcast out into the world and share your story and share your content and share your knowledge and the value that the impact that you create in the world with the technology that we have. So, what's the reason? Like, what's that main kind of calling that you see people have in creating a podcast?
I think the main thing is they definitely want to be that resource for their audience and to not only gain new audience, but kind of like have something kind of like a business card. Like we all have business cards, we all have a website, but they want to use podcasting as sort of that resource where they can actually say, hey, go to episode 197 or something like that, where I talk about XYZ. And that way, when people are listening, they getting firsthand information in their ears and the person is talking. And I don't think people realize it, but that's actually a form of having like an automated class, like a free class or a free workshop or something like that. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And it's so funny. I was doing a couple of workshops and I have one person that in my program currently, and she just did this amazing video and we was doing like a tech session and she just went on and on about how she's so happy that she found me. And I said, oh, wait, let me record this because I'm gonna need this. I'm gonna need this later on. But the passion she had, because she helps women with perimenopause and menopause and how to actually cope with that in a different way rather than dealing with medicines and everything. So she's been in that space in her career where now she's retired and now she wants to give this information. So that's where a lot of people are at in their lives. Like they either currently in the current career and actually want to give more information on that. And a lot of people, they just like, I just want to teach people. I want to give this resource. I never really hear anybody say like, how do I monetize? It's always the reverse. Like, how do I ask for sponsorships for myself rather than me asking sponsorships for my podcast? And I did a little brief segment on that, but is mainly I want to just be that resource for my audience.
Right. And so, the women that listen to the Rich Life Revolution, they are often creating their version of their rich life. And that could look like traveling the world on a yacht. It could look like living off grid with a bunch of chickens and goats and everything in between. And so it kind of makes me think about like it's the whole idea of like telling stories. I think when we think about the past I don't know, 50 years, let's say, right? One of the things that's come out of media is like storytelling, like Oprah. Like Oprah told stories, right? She had people on to tell their story. And a podcast is you telling your story. It's you sharing the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the having people on to inspire and motivate people, right? And so I think often in our striving to create our version of our rich life, there's the inspiration that we can provide for other people just by simply sharing our story.
That's right.
A lot of people that I talk to, they think they need to be like a speaker on a stage getting a gazillion dollars. And it's like, no, you can have a podcast and be even more impactful because you're open to such a wider audience in that way.
That is so true. And it's so funny. I know I'm like the girl of all trades, but or the Jill of all trades. But from my podcasting has really helped me to develop a summit. I did a summit, an online summit. It was called the Christianpreneur Summit. And some of my guests was actually on that summit. And I had find a few guests, but the impact of people telling their stories on that summit, it was the same thing. And I've done like a mini summit before where I translate and I put it onto my podcast so people can just listen over and over again. So it is having that space for people to have a conversation and to talk and it's so awesome because you don't even have to be on video. I mean, we're on video now, but I tell people you can be in your pajamas. We're not going to be on camera. So I mean, you can make an impact in your pajamas. Maybe I should create a new program for that. But
That would be so good. Oh my God. I love that. I would join that. Make an impact in your pajamas.
in your pajamas, and it's just amazing. I don't think podcasting is going anywhere anytime soon. And a lot of people say, "Well, it's really hard to find content," and it's not. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's just an amazing platform for you to share.
Yeah. So you shared a little trick you used that you want to share with our audience, which I think was gold. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It became part of your framework for working with your clients. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, yes. So, first, I want to talk about like how I actually started doing it, and then I'll go into what they can do. So, when I was coming up with, like what I need to do for a course, I wanted to build a course. The first thing I did was, okay, I need to find out the conversations that's going on in the Facebook groups of the people who I'm trying to target, who's looking to start a podcast and everything. And so what I did was I went in there and I got a Google sheet and I started like actually writing down all the questions. Once I wrote down the questions, when I got enough questions, I actually grouped the questions together and I kind of like put them in categories. And that kind of like came out to be like essentially the framework for what I do today. I've changed it over time and tweaked it, but I think it's nice and perfected now. But that's how I actually like start creating the podcast course that I recently revived and made it better. But that's how I just got started, with my offers and use that same framework to create a lead magnet as well. So basically, what you do is you go into Facebook groups and you don't even have to join the groups. There's a lot of public groups out there where you can actually see the conversations. And I teach this in my course as my challenge as well. And so basically what you find a group, like say for instance, if it's menopause seems to be like a really big thing. And so if it's like menopause or something like that, you just go into the search bar in Facebook and you search menopause and you say, I want to specifically narrow it down to groups. And then you look for public groups, make sure, the questions or the post is every day because you don't want to like go into a group they're just posting every now and again. You want to make sure that group is pretty active. Go in there, and then what you do is you start looking for questions. Another thing I tell my students all the time is to go into the search bar in the group, type struggle or struggling with or how to, those things. When you do that and you click search in the group, a whole bunch of posts will come up. You just go through those posts and automatically, like I would say 9 times out of 10, I could gather 10 questions, at least 10 questions from maybe 2 or 3 posts that you can put into a spreadsheet and just go do a couple, just do it for like maybe an hour or so. Put a whole bunch of questions in the spreadsheet, get maybe about 20, and then you can start grouping things. People will tell you what they need and what they want. You could actually just create it from that. You don't have to think about it. Like, it's there. Like, they ask questions all the time. I'm in this group called Women Helping Women Entrepreneurs, and I created a free lead magnet off of, I completely forgot what it was. I think, was it Disney? I think it was Disney. Disneyland Guide or something like that.
You love
Yes.
a Disney, right?
Disney. But that's what I do. I go into them large groups because so many people asking the same questions every day. And, you can get a lot of things. Oh, one time, so I left my 9 to 5 and I was like, I can definitely help people transition from out of their 9 to 5. They just need to save. So I need to find out what they struggle with, people who's doing it, people who's asking questions or want to know more information about how they can transition out of their 9 to 5. I went into that group and oh my gosh, it was so much content and questions and everything. I literally just pulled questions out that I seen the most, and I created a lead magnet answering those questions about how you can transition out of your 9 to 5. There you have it. Like it's right there.
Yeah, I said this was gold, and I promise you this is gold. I've been around business for a long time. And what you described is just such an easy thing to do. A lot of people will start a business based on what they love to do or feel passionate about or whatever, right? And they've maybe moved through the struggle so they don't totally remember the struggle anymore. And so they'll talk about the result, but they won't speak to the struggle. And people aren't in the result. Yeah, sure, they want the result, but you also have to speak to the struggle. You have to meet people where they're at. So you got to know, like, what questions are they asking? Where is the obstacle? Where is the challenge for them to get to where you are now? Because you might not remember. And also, everybody's journey is different. So people will have, different things. And you got to be able to speak to those things. In my business, we help people feel empowered about their finances and the financial aspect of their business. One of the things we do is provide accounting and bookkeeping support. I don't struggle with that anymore, but I have in the past, but I don't really remember. And so I have to always remind myself and find out, what are people struggling about now? Because what they struggled with 5 years ago might not be, like, tech moves so fast, right? Like, 5 years ago, it might have been, how do I keep track of all these receipts in my shoebox of papers? That's not even a thing anymore because we have technology. So what are they struggling with now? Like, how do I don't know, take a picture of my receipt and upload it to software? Or I don't know, how do I, like, whatever. But it's important to stay on top of these things, right? So that we remain relevant to our client. So good. And so I love the way you say that you turned this into a lead magnet, because a lot of times people create lead magnets based on what they think people want, but it isn't what they want, or it's fluff. Like, I've opted into lead magnets because I want to see what somebody has to offer. Like, I'm curious, right? And it's just this piece of fluff that means nothing. And it's like, well, now I'm irritated. This is not helping me. It's not giving me any information. And now I'm on your list, basically. That feels very transactional. Transactional isn't how we create, like, loyal clients and stuff, right? So I love that you took this and you created a really valuable lead magnet, because there are a lot of people who want to leave a 9 to 5. They need a step by step process. So I love that. And so then you said to me, you can use this and you can create a whole course around it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, you can take that information. So I created my podcast launch guide. which then turned into a podcast launch kit, which then turned into a 5-day challenge, which then turned into a course. It's like a domino effect, but it's the same thing that I'm teaching and I'm telling you from based on what people were asking. So I actually use those questions that people were asking to create the lead magnet. The lead magnet was so good that I had a list of, I think we'll say maybe over 100 or 200 something people. And I'm like, hey, I have this, I have that. And nobody was budging or biting or buying. I was like, what's going on? I'll say, it's time to ask a question. I'm like, okay, have you started a podcast yet? Or do you still need help? And they're like, a couple of people responded back. They said, your free guide was so good that I already launched my podcast. I said, what? I was like, oh no. I said, I actually turned that into the podcast launch kit, which I sold during Black Friday in 2021. And that was my first time like actually selling something physical online. I did it for like $7 and I had like a whole funnel for it and everything. I was like, no, they got too much information. I was like, I was like, I'm gonna have to charge for this. But I have it still as a freebie, but I narrowed it down a lot to where as though it's not so much information to where as though they can actually launch, but just enough so they can get an idea. But that's based off of what people were asking. And I just kept building it from there. And I go in there every now and again, periodically to groups and find out what are they asking now. And now it's more of, okay, well, how do I market this? Or how do I monetize this? And things like that. And a lot of people don't know the truth behind monetizing, but it's so many different ways than just, getting the ad sponsorship and things like that. You can just use it just to, sell your own products. So, yeah, it's really awesome.
Yeah. So two things, Sarah. I want to make sure you made me think of two things. The first one was one thing I learned early on was give them the what, not the how in your lead magnet, right? Which is you gave them the what and the how originally.
Yes. Oopsie.
Right? So everybody who's new to this, give them the what they need to do, not how to do it. To learn how to do it, they need to, there needs to be an exchange of value, right? Money to get the value that you're providing. That is awesome. I love that. And I also love that like you are like the side hustle queen kind of thing. You were doing this stuff on the side of a 9 to 5 and you were creating your version of your rich life. You weren't at some point totally ready to jump off the ledge and go full into this. What happened for you that made you take that leap?
That's a really good question. A lot of times in 9 to 5, there's management, there's corporate politics, and then there's people above you. I think my breaking point was when I was passed up so many times for being a manager when I knew that I was fully capable. I was running a department, like, and then they bring all these people in who don't know exactly, the functionality of our department. I'm the only one that knew. So they bring in these people for me to train on a position that they passed me up on, or they were friends, or they knew the person, different things like that. And I just kind of got tired of it and I prayed on it. Like it was like maybe a year or so before I completely left. And I just got this divine intervention that, don't worry about it. It's going to happen. But the breaking point for me was when they kept pushing a title or a label that was a non-manager, non-supervisor role, even though I was supervisor kind of thing. So I was like, I can't believe this is happening. If I would have stayed, I probably would have demoted myself. I probably, because of the pressure of them constantly telling me in my ear, this, I would have demoted myself. And the thing of it is, my mom was like, she could not stand the job. She didn't like it because she seen how upset I was. And, I was saving money. I had no desire I was making pretty good money, but I had no desire to spend it. I was just buying courses and everything because I want to learn a new skill set and things like that. But I saved my money. I stacked my money enough to where so I could be off for a full year. It's been July 1. has been a year now, and I'm still working towards things. But I would definitely say have that stack of savings, and then having a good support system as well. My mom support me 100%. And the funny thing is, I'm gonna tell you, it's so wonderful. As soon as when I left, my mom's job just started giving out colas. They have not gotten a cola in 10 years. Like right after I left, she started getting colas. She started getting, it's cost of living if percentage. She started getting like these mini raises and things like that. They have never done that in the history of her living there, like being there for 20 years. Like they haven't got none of that like in like 10 or 15 years that she were there. And it was just so amazing. That just lets me know, yes, what you're doing is okay. And my mom was like, don't worry about it. We'll get through it. And she supports me like 100%. Even though it's been a year, she haven't been like, Candice, when you get a job. But, she's know what I'm doing and she knows it's going to pay off.
That's so great. What a great story. It's like leap and the net will appear for sure. And I have been there too. I have been in a role where I had a title that was bullshit, basically. The guy who was in the role that I was basically doing was the owner's son. He didn't know jack shit about anything, right? I was doing his job and my job, but I didn't have his title. And I actually had pretty much a nervous breakdown because of all of the stress around that. And there was a lot of times where my husband said to me, "You need to leave this job." And I was like, "Oh, but it pays well. We need the money." Like, you have all the excuses, right? And so I didn't. But it's kind of like, God or the universe or whatever will like tap you on the shoulder and then maybe punch you in the arm. And then eventually you get hit upside the head with a 2x4, right? And that was me. I had to wait till I got like this hit upside the head with a 2x4 kind of thing. And then I was like, oh, hang on. I need to like reconsider what I'm doing. And I decided to create my own business. Now I don't have that same business anymore. That business lasted 2 years and it was awesome. I loved it, but I decided to pivot. I think it's so important to pay attention to the intuition that is kicking in, that inner voice that's saying, hang on, something here isn't right. And it's so valuable, I think, when we can pay attention and not worry. Like, I'm not saying be reckless and just quit your job and assume that you're going to win the lottery or something, right? But like you were saving money, you were investing in personal growth and professional development, right? Like you were doing all the things to set you up to take that leap. At some point, you got to take the leap because the net is not going to be there when you first take the leap, usually.
That is so true. That's so true. And I've had a lot of head trash. Like still to this day, my family do not know that I don't like my mom and my pastor, like, and I think my pastor's daughter. They're like the only ones that actually know that I'm no longer working a 9 to 5, and I like to keep it that way. But my family, they don't know. They still think I work for the financial institution that I work for. They be asking me questions about the interest rate. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's up there like 7%. Just go down to the car dealership because I was the indirect lending supervisor. So like when you go purchase a car, the contract has to go to the institution, and my team was the one that actually funded the loan and give the dealer the money and everything. So I'm still playing the role, but I know that eventually mom was like, well, eventually they'll find out. They don't need to know because the thing of it is you want to keep your mental state focused. You don't need the extras. You don't need the extras because that's going to make you worse. And trust me, when I left, it was hard. That was the hardest, like 6, 7 months. Like the questions, Candace, why did you leave? Well, if you would have left, this wouldn't happen, and this, that, and the other. But the main thing, my mom was like the medical. Everything just fell into place. But I still was stuck in my head. Everything fell into place. I was able to get my medical, I was able to get dental and everything. But I'm still here. I was still here. 18 years. Like, come on, like that's a long time to be somewhere. I started when I was 21.
Well, you barely look over 21 right now,
Thank
so I
you.
don't know.
Thank you.
Got some good face cream going on there. But yeah, I do appreciate you saying like you don't need all the extra, because I think that we have to be discerning who we share our reality with, because it is true that people have an opinion. People have most times have no problem sharing their opinion with you as fact, and it's not. And I too am, I don't need to tell everybody everything that's going on. Like there's people who I tell, there's people who I don't. I have boundaries now, but I had to learn that. And I think the other thing is when you make a significant shift in your life, like you and I have both made, sometimes there's stories that get created around that that aren't always true. So when I left that role, there was a whole story around it that all these people had, and we're all chit-chatty about it, and it was hard. It was hard to go through that. My kids were in school with some of these other kids' parents. Like I was like, okay, like I just gotta blinders on. Like I can't get involved in this. It's not my business. If they want to have this gossipy thing, that's on them. That's not on me. So I appreciate that it's not easy to make these moves. And there's other things that happen beyond our experience, right? Like there's other people that weigh in with their bullshit, right?
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I'm like, I'm very selective as to who I tell, unless it's gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to tell them. But here lately, it haven't been like that. So, like, my family members, they are the worst when it comes to supporting people. Like, if you have a regular job, like that's okay. Oh yeah, they got a job. They got a job. I'm like, you're not even supporting the people to go to college. It's just as soon as when you get out of high school, just get a job. And then when you get a job in a security, because that's mainly what a lot of people in my family do, it's a blah about it. But I'm like, whatever happened to let's support them in if they want to go to college. Let's support them if they want to start their own business. The minute you do that, it's like you need to get a job, you need to make money. And that's been the thing in my head for years. I mean, grew up around that. We all have, that's the American dream, but it's no longer a dream no more. It's a
No,
nightmare.
no, it's I think it's a nightmare, right? Like and it's not true. Like it's not it doesn't provide I don't believe any job is secure. I don't believe like it just doesn't provide what it used to provide 50 years ago or whatever. And it's just a very different world now. And there's so many possibilities. So what I love is supporting women in particular, but especially women and or marginalized people in our world to shift the wealth trajectory for themselves and their future generations, right? To me, that's so important because it is possible now. And a huge reason it's possible is through entrepreneurship. And like you're such a great example of this. You are breaking the mold of just go out and get a job and make some money and be part of that hamster wheel. And you're like, no, I'm going to do it this way instead. I'm going to do it differently. And so the follow on effect of that, the ripple effect of that is that it will shift everyone around you in your family. It just does because that's what happens. And there's so many more possibilities. So thank you for being brave enough to leave that job and do what you're doing and spread your genius in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a joy. It really has. It's a struggle. It's a struggle bus. Like I'm still struggling and I'm still trying to figure it out and see what works, what's not working. But I say, Candace, you have to go through something in order for you to tell your story about how you came out successful in the end. So I'm like, just go through it. I know it's painful. I know you wish you had your Disney annual pass again, but but I'm like, it's only temporary, it's not forever. So just go through it, have your testimony ready so that you can help others.
Yeah, it's like that. I heard this recently. Like, my struggle now will be the story I tell in the future. And so for me, in tough times or when things don't go right, I remind myself, like, this is a story you can tell in the future of how you got through this, and that will help somebody else. So I love that. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and sharing your story and going deep like this. I just so want to share you with the world. And where are you hanging out? Where can people find you besides Disneyland?
I know, you can check me out at Disneyland in California. Actually, you can find me on Instagram. So it's CS Dorsey _ hello. I don't post very much on there, but I am on there. So you can DM me. I'm in the DMs. It's a lot of information about me. And also, I do challenges, my podcast launch challenge every month. So if you want to shoot me a DM and just say, hey, Candice, I'm interested, you could definitely do so. So that's where you can find me at.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to share your podcast challenge. I have two friends who have talked about doing a podcast, and I'm going to be like, do Candice's challenge. Challenge you to do Candice's challenge.
Love it.
Awesome. Awesome. So we'll put everything into the show notes so anybody can check you out. Everybody can follow you and get all the value that you're offering to the world and really like dive in to what you have to offer and support your success. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
So have you ever thought about taking that leap yourself? Maybe you have a side gig. Maybe you have a hobby that you'd like to spend more time on and actually make some money. I think Candice's top takeaways were really, really important. Have your savings. You're unlikely to go straight from high 5-figure employment to a matching self-employed income. So get your savings net in order and have your support system. Gather those people behind you who will cheer you on, take you off of the big ledges, and have your back every step of the way. These two things will make that jump or that leap, let's say, even easier. Thanks for joining me today. I have so loved this conversation. I think that many times people sit at their 9-to-5 desk and dream of the grass is greener in the entrepreneurial world. That is sometimes true, sometimes not so much. If you truly feel called to take that leap, then this episode gave you some great gold nuggets. Join me next week in one of my solo episodes where we are going to talk all things manifesting and magic. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you got at least one gold nugget today. Be sure to grab your copy of the Rich Life Revolution workbook to help you set the foundation for your next level of wealthy. Get it now at richliferevolution.ca, and I'll see you later.